So what happens is the $35 closing protection letter is actually paid to the title underwriter. It doesn't go to the title agency.
And I heard, like, well, my realtor said that her company, if they have a fault in getting their settlement through, or it's an issue and a problem that's on their behalf, they'll award you a certain amount of money if it's a problem or a title is concerned.
Okay, that may be a policy. I'm not sure who. That's not a
standard thing.
No.
Okay.
But normally, you know, we're out after goodwill. So normally, if a problem occurs, the title company is going to try to make it right. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for your attention, and good luck on your house buying.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jamie Brosco. Jamie is an agent for Century 21 Absolute. So she's going to tell you about what she does as an agent. What the agent obviously does is to help you find your house, but they do a whole lot more.
Hi, how is everybody today? I was actually supposed to do last week, but I've been very sick. So whoever was here last week and I missed you, I apologize. But I'm going to go through a couple papers. They have limited time for me today, so I'm going to go through what you guys need to know as far as choosing a realtor. I've been with Century 21 about 5 years. In that time, I've worked with Media Fellowship and CCIP for those 5 years. Does anybody know what a buyer's agent is?
So if the agent actually represents the buyer at settlement, like a seller, what I understand, because we deal with your company already, is that he represents the buyer, but if he represents the seller as well, then he has to basically, you know, somehow he has to do a spec for the seller in that case versus the buyer.
Exactly. A listing agent would be someone that has a house on the market, meaning that they are selling that property, they are representing that seller, they already have a contract with that seller. A buyer's agent means that they're working directly with you. Now that doesn't mean that the buyer's agent may not have, you know, they may have other clients, they probably do, because a real estate agent doesn't get paid until they sit down at the table, so they're working with different buyers. But if you're working with a buyer's agent, meaning they're working on your behalf, you get benefits with that, meaning they're out there looking for you, they're working specifically with you, and they have nothing to do with the seller. Now, in my own experience and in my opinion, I won't work with the seller and the buyer on the same house, because the thing is, working with both, how can you represent both of them fairly? If I have that house for sale and the buyer comes back and wants to offer this price and the seller wants this amount, how do we know, where to come and who to tell what to? So buyer's agent just means that that agent is working specifically for you. Some of those things that an agent will do, if you guys look at this page, it's a 2-page handout and they're handing out the rest of it, so just listen until you get it. It says, without buyer representation, a realtor cannot protect you, meaning that they have nothing to do with you. They're not going to keep your personal, information private. They're not going to be out there working directly for you. Educate you regarding property values. When you're out there with a realtor, so they're sending you listings and you guys are going out and looking at properties, and say you see a house and you think it's a little bit overpriced. Your realtor, what they're going to do is they're going to look online and they're going to see everything that's sold in that area in the past 6 months, almost like what an appraiser does. I don't know if you guys have an appraiser coming in, probably the bank people will talk about that, but they're going to make sure that you're not overpaying for this house. So that's another way that they'll protect you. They'll be able to show you, ask your realtor, can you print me out comparable properties that have sold? Now if you're in a section of an area and you know that everything's sold over there, still get them to print it out so you know that you're pretty much within the range that you're not overpaying for this property. Make information on newly listed homes available to you before contacting other buyer clients. What that section is talking about is, a lot of times buyers, before you get with a realtor, even when you're with a realtor, I know what you do because I used to do it. You go on every website and you look at realtor.com and you look at Prudential and you look at Century 21. Your agent is going to be able to send you exactly what's available on the market every day. If you don't see that coming from them, probably a couple things. Either your agent's not doing their job and you probably need to work with someone else, or it's not in your price range, it's not what you're looking for. So if you're driving around and seeing signs, or you're looking on websites like realtor.com, do you know when a house is sold, sometimes it can sit on realtor.com and look like an active listing for 6 months. So you may look on there and you may say, well, why did my realtor not send me this? Well, because it was sold and someone's already living in it. You're just seeing on that website that it's still active. So your realtor's going to make sure that they're sending you everything that's active on the market that fits your price range and what you're looking for. Recommend that the seller be responsible for repairing items at their expense. Well, that's a big thing. When you're going through this program, did you guys go through the HQS sheet yet? The inspection sheet? Okay. You'll probably go through that at some point today. When you have an offer in on a property, meaning you and your agent have seen a property, you put in an offer, it's gotten accepted. You're going to do your home inspection. There could be things that come up on that HQS sheet that need to be repaired. By that seller signing this contract with you, they have to fix those things that come up on the HQS. Now, not everything falls under that. So say there's something that you feel is a major issue for you, but it doesn't fall into that HQS sheet, your agent can still negotiate with that other agent to have those things repaired for you. So again, it's your agent working on behalf of you to make sure that that's done. Keeping your information confident, that's a huge thing. Say you're approved up to $120,000, but you find a house for $115,000 and you want to offer $110,000. Get your realtor to get you a pre-approval letter that says up to $110,000, because your information, if your relationship between you and your agent is confident with that other, between anybody else, they have to keep all your information private. If you want to offer a certain price on something, you can do that with your agent. Make sure that they're not disclosing too much information about you. Create a negotiating strategy that'll strengthen your position. What I always do is with my clients, prior to putting in an offer, I'll call that other agent. You'll see, and depending on who you choose to work with as your realtor, you'll see a lot of other agents, maybe they've been in the business for a long time, they may not be familiar with this program. Make sure that your agent is calling that other agent when you're putting in an offer, letting them know what a great program it is. If they're nervous about that HQS, the repairs that may need to be done, number one, either the house is not in good shape and probably you don't want it anyway, or number two, they just don't understand it. Have your agent send over a copy so they can kind of go through the checklist and make sure that it's okay. The other agent can also say, look, they're getting $5,000 for going through this program. They may not need as much money as a seller's assist from you. So there's a lot of benefits to this program that your agent will need to be able to explain to the other agent. So make sure that they are familiar with it. Discuss any negative aspects of the property which are not material facts. What that means is when you're going through the property, if your agent sees problems with the house, they should try and point that out. Now remember, an agent is not a home inspector. I do not have any license. I'm not an electrician. I don't know major things. But if you see like a foot of water in the basement and your agent's telling you that's not a problem, probably they're not telling the truth. You want to make sure that your agent is disclosing what they know about the property and that you guys are kind of talking about it to help you make a good decision on it. You don't want to have to put out $350 for a home inspection if when you walk in the door it looks like there's major repairs to be done already. You probably just want to look at it. Maybe you won't even get in the front door and move on, okay? Which I've done many times. So your realtors, you're not looking at their own house. If you walk in and you hate the house, just tell them, let's keep moving. You're not doing them a favor or yourself. Recommend that the seller pay a portion of your closing costs. Depending on what you're approved up to will determine if they can pay a portion of it. That $5,000 grant is going to take care of some of your closing costs. Mike, everybody has to have 3%, right, into the deal? 3% into the deal?
Yeah.
Okay. So you as a buyer, whatever your sales price is, you need to have 3% of your own money into that transaction. So say it's a $100,000 house and you need $3,000 into the transaction, whether it be your deposits, your home inspection, all those things that are adding up. There may not be more room for a seller's assist. You're not going to get both if you don't need it, but your agent should be able to do, I'm going to show you guys a cost sheet real fast. Your agent should be able to sit down and determine fairly closely if you will need a seller's assist also. Because if you only have to contribute $3,000 and there's another $5,000 out there that you're getting from CCIP or Media Fellowship and you need another $2,000, we'll see if you can get, a seller's assist from the seller to where you only have to put in your money that you need to contribute. So again, it may not be in everybody's case that you will definitely need one, but get your agent to do that. And tell you about the seller's personal circumstances. What that means is your agent, again, should be speaking to the listing agent. Say the seller, it's a sheriff's, or no, not a sheriff's sale, that's not a good example. Say it's an estate, the person who lived there died, the kids are handling it, they may be more apt to want to sell it at a lower price. Now remember, that listing agent is working directly for that seller, so they don't have to disclose everything to your agent. Okay, they only disclose what they have to, but with your agent speaking with them, they may be able to get them to say, okay, well, you know, well, this is our bottom line, or this is this way. Again, it doesn't work in all cases, but if your agent is good at kind of talking to the other agents, they'll be able to get, you know, an idea as to what the bottom line is, or if there's anything else going on. When can they settle? You know, it's just communication between you and your agent, and then your agent and the listing agent. Do you guys have any questions with this front page?
Do you have it more?
I do. I will give, yeah. I didn't have one. Oh, your girl must have got skipped, so I'm talking, you have no idea. The second page on this is just a sheet that I give. I'm not going to go through all this, but it's a sheet that I give to my buyers that, again, in detail shows you exactly what I do specifically as an agent. Now, it's not to say if you guys already have agents or you're thinking of using another agent. This is just showing you what I would do as an agent. And again, I work with the program very frequently. The biggest thing that I can say is just no matter who you choose to work with, make sure that your agent understands this program. There's a lot of communication that needs to go back and forth from the agent to Media Fellowship, to the title company, to the lender. You have a lot of people working on your behalf, but if no one's talking and everybody doesn't understand what's going on, you're in trouble. You need to make sure that they know what's going on. I'd mentioned about the costs, and Vance went through the whole HUD, so I'm not going to go through all this. My point is, with this cost sheet, when you sit down with an agent, this was an FHA mortgage that I'm actually settling for next week with, it's actually a CCIP buyer. If you look down on this left-hand side, under all the one-time closing costs, you'll see that this buyer down at the bottom was able to get the $5,000 through CCIP. She also has a child, so she did a PHFA grant for $2,000. Her closing costs are about $150, okay, on that left-hand side. So, my point is with this, when you're writing an offer, you're going to spend the most time with your real estate agent. The title company's not going to be there. The lender most likely will not be there when you're signing, signing contracts. Media Fellowship won't be there. Will they have reviewed the contract yet? Because your agent has to send that over to them. But the point is, you want to make sure that when you're sitting down with your agent, on the back page of the agreement of sale, it says that the agent is obligated to disclose your closing costs. Now again, the agent doesn't determine what the bank is charging you, what everybody else is charging you, but if they're in contact with the bank, with the title company, they'll know these fees, and you'll know at the time that you sit down to write an offer roughly how much you're going to need to bring to settlement, how much you need your deposit, and all those things. So just make sure that when you're sitting down with your agent that they're doing this for you. Okay? And it shows really on this total amount with everything she needed on a $130,000 house, about $3,700 of her own money. That's including her home inspection, including all of her, appraisal and everything like that. So again, it's just something that it's important that you're understanding these numbers. The biggest thing is when you're making an offer on the house, you want to know how much your interest rate is going to be, because you want to know how much you're paying each month. What do you need now? How much money you need now? And that you're getting into a good house. So just, again, make sure that you guys are getting all this information from your agent. Make sure that your agent gives you, on this page, it's a front and back, a consumer notice. This is not a, go ahead. You need that too? You guys must have just had to skip. Can you guys do that? Thank you. The consumer notice is important. It basically, again, discloses what a real estate agent is obligated to do for you. It breaks it down to seller agency, buyer agency, being represented by a buyer's agent. Dual agency, which is what we were kind of talking about when the listing agent, is it legal? Can a listing agent represent a buyer and seller? Yeah, they can. I don't do it specifically because I don't like being in the middle of two things and feel like I can be fair to everybody, but it is legal, they can do it. And it explains all of these things on here. Mike, I'm trying to go fast for you, so I don't hold everybody up. I also handed out one of these books. A lot of the things that you didn't get one either? Do me a favor, pass that. That book we hand out in our office. My office is Century 21 Absolute. We're located in Springfield. We have a couple different offices, Springfield, Ridley, and Westchester. If you guys didn't go through this program, you would come in and sit down in our office. How we do it is sit down with an agent and do something called a buyer consultation. Would it be this detailed? Probably not. You guys are really having a good opportunity because you're learning a lot before you go out. That's why me as a realtor, I like this program, because the time the buyer gets to me, they're pros, they know what they're doing, their credit is good, they're pre-approved, you know, they're ready to go. But that book is something that we hand out in our office, that a lot of the things that you're learning today is what would have been gone over when you do a buyer consultation with an agent. So you guys have that. It has the office number on there. I did put my cards in the back. Go ahead. No, go ahead. I put my cards in the back. It has my cell phone number on there. Anybody that does need a real estate agent, if they would like to work with me, my cell phone number's on there. Make sure that you have access, whoever you do choose, to your agent. If your agent works Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, they're probably not someone that you want to work with, because mostly everybody else works 9 to 5. So you need to have someone that will go out with you on nights and weekends and take you out looking. Trying to think if I have anything else. Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, Jamie, I think misunderstood the question earlier. Were you asking how much they have to put into the purchase?
Yeah, they need 3%
Oh,
of their own
okay,
money,
I
right?
did give you the wrong answer. It's $1,000. They have to put at least $1,000 into the purchase.
Okay. With FHA, though, where it kind of gets confusing depending on what your sales price is, and FHA mortgage will want you to have 3% of your own money into it. So I always tell my buyers, based on the sales price, if you want to take the total sales price and we just times it by 3%, we'll try to get it to where you can get your 3% in. Will it work that way every time? No, there may be a seller that's not willing to do an extra seller's assist or something like that. But you try to work it to where you can get in with the minimum amount of money in order to purchase the house.
So we need an extra seller's assist in addition to
The 5,000, depending on, now, like I said, on a $100,000 house, you probably won't need that. Because when you sit down and you do your closing costs, which is what I said is very important when you're writing an offer, that your agent is sitting there doing these closing costs. That's the first thing I do before we sign any papers. I'll show them how much they need, how much they're going to pay a month, and you know how they're going to need to get into this house. But depending on what the sales price is, what you're approved up to, and what your total closing costs are, there may be room to still ask for an additional seller's assist. Now, say you're not contributing your full 3%, and that seller's assist overrides that, what'll happen is one of two things. The bank will probably either make the grant reduce, or they'll reduce the seller's assist if you're not putting in your amount of money that you need to have.
Okay.
So I just try to explain.
For example, like this person maybe got 5,000, and then they put their additional 1,000, so that was 6,000, and then they got money from the Keystone grant.
Exactly.
And which totaled up to $7,145.
Exactly.
So they didn't need additional sellers.
Exactly,
Okay.
totally right. And again, it all depends on the sales price and everything, because different prices, of course, make different ratios. So it depends specifically on the house. But again, that's what it's important that the agent is just sitting there going through those numbers with you, so you understand them. And again, the bank will be the one that gives you most accurate numbers. But if your agent is working with the bank, they should be able to get fairly close to what the bank has, because they're working with them and they're getting that information. Does anybody else have questions? No? I think I'm good. Thank you guys very much.
The next speaker is Sarah Lee Sewell, and Sarah Lee is an education specialist from Fair Housing Council of Suburban Philadelphia. She's going to talk to you about fair housing practices.
Thank you very much, and good morning. Again, my name is Sarah Lee Sewell. I'm an education specialist with the Fair Housing Council. And just to start off, I just want to read you a few lines to give you an idea of kind of what we do and what we've experienced, particularly in the past year. An ad for an apartment in a local newspaper stated no kids. A landlord received threatening messages after he rented to African American tenants. An African American family attempted to rent a home. They were told by the owner that he would not rent to them because the neighbors, quote, didn't like colored people living there. A rental agent was told by the owner of an apartment building to deny the applications of prospective tenants if they use a wheelchair. The staff of an apartment complex would not return phone calls of African immigrants who had applied for the apartment. A real estate agent refused to be present at a home inspection, stating that she hated dealing with Iranian people. A tenant was evicted when the landlord found out he had HIV. An apartment complex would not allow guide dogs. Now, these are some real examples of complaints that we've had just in the past year of instances of housing discrimination in this region. 2008 marks the 40th anniversary of the passing of the Fair Housing Act, yet housing discrimination remains to be a huge problem in this region and across America. Now, most discrimination these days is subtle. People are still greeted with a smile and a handshake, but they're still told no. And so that's where we come in. And I want to talk a little bit about what we do and who we are. Again, we're the Fair Housing Council of Suburban Philadelphia, and our mission is to educate and advocate for equal access to quality and affordable housing for everyone in southeastern Pennsylvania. And our vision is that one day, everyone in the region will have access to the housing of their choice. Basically, we want to eradicate housing discrimination. Now, we are the oldest fair housing council in the nation. We were established in 1956, which was actually 12 years prior to the passing of the fair housing laws. We serve the 5-county region, including Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Montgomery, and Philadelphia counties. And through our efforts, over 46,000 housing units have been made available to the protected classes. Some of our services include enforcement and investigation services, but as well as education and training for the community, both consumers as well as housing providers. So we provide services for everyone in the region. Now, just a few statistics for you. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, estimates that each year 2.5 million people are the victims of housing discrimination in America. Now, their annual report for 2006 has stated that for that year, 10,000 housing discrimination complaints were filed nationwide, which marked the highest number of complaints filed per year to date. And of those, race and disability marked the top reasons why people were discriminated against. Now, to get into talking about the laws that protect people from discrimination, the main law, the Fair Housing Act, it's the Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968. And it makes it unlawful to discriminate against people in housing-related transactions based on the protected classes, which include race, color, religion, national origin, gender, disability, and familial status. Now, familial status basically refers to the presence of children under the age of 18 in the household. Also, Pennsylvania law protects people for the same protected classes. However, it also includes age above the age of 40. And there's also local laws as well. They differ from municipality to municipality, but source of income may be protected, marital status, military status, etc. So, all of these things may be protected in your areas. Now, the Fair Housing Act basically covers all housing-related transactions. So rentals are covered, sales, mortgage lending, homeowners insurance, appraisals, etc. Now, as well, the Fair Housing Act also protects people from discriminatory advertising. Basically, it's illegal to print a discriminatory ad. If you see an ad that says, for example, no kids, due to the fact that familial status is protected under the law, that would be a discriminatory ad. That would be unlawful. Generally, we say that advertisements should describe the property and not the potential occupants. So if you're getting into, if an advertisement is getting into, who they want living there, that's something that we encourage the media to stay away from. We want people to have equal access to the housing of their choice, and therefore, if you're saying no kids, for example, that's providing a limitation on families. So, if a discriminatory ad is printed, both the housing provider as well as the media are liable for that discriminatory ad. Now, generally, the Fair Housing Act covers all properties, but there are a few exceptions, which I want to go into. Notably, there's 3 exemptions to the Act, which includes, number 1, owner-occupied buildings with 4 or less units, when the owner does not use the services of a real estate agent. So, for example, if the property owner lives downstairs, they decide to rent out the 3 units upstairs, It's called the Mrs. Murphy's exemption, but basically that's an exempt property as long as that owner does not use the services of a real estate agent to advertise the property. Now, number 2, housing run by religious organizations or private clubs that restrict occupancy to only its members, that is exempt under the law as long as they don't discriminate based on race. And the 3rd exemption is qualified senior citizen communities, but they have to meet the following guidelines. Either 100% of the occupants must be 62 or older, 80% have to be 55 or older. So basically, if they meet either one of those 2 guidelines, then they are exempt under the Act. Now, this particular one was brought about by the Housing for Older Persons Act, which was passed in 1995, which allows these communities to be strictly senior communities, and generally they can discriminate only based on familial status or based on age. Now, I want to kind of go into examples of treatment that may be considered discriminatory under the law. Now, refusing to rent or sell or negotiate for housing may be discriminatory. Making housing unavailable or denying that it's available. For example, if you go in to apply for or inquire about a housing unit and you're told on the phone, sure, it's available, come on down, let's make an appointment to see it. Then once you get there and you know, the agent basically sees you and says, all of a sudden the story changes and says, oh no, it was just rented, it was just sold, or something like that. That may indicate discriminatory treatment. Setting different terms or conditions for the sale or rental of housing. So, for example, if, let's say, certain credit or income standards are being imposed, but you feel like they're only being imposed on you, but not other applicants, that may be discriminatory. We want to make sure that people are being treated equally across the board, and if someone's getting a credit check, then every single applicant should be getting that credit check. Steering or segregating housing. If someone's telling you, maybe you should look in this neighborhood or on this street, but not necessarily over there. It's up to you where you want to live, and you should have the housing of your choice. So therefore, that would be unlawful. Offering a much higher rate or interest rate than the current averages. Not returning phone calls when an applicant is inquiring about the status of their application. Or in insurance, perhaps, and if an insurer will only offer a market rate policy versus a replacement cost policy, or offering inferior coverage. All of these things, and it's not a guarantee, but they may be indications of discriminatory treatment. So that's something more on a subtle level that you may see in, hopefully you won't, but something to watch out for. Now, I want to go into specifics about people with disabilities and families with children. Now, to start off, there are several laws that deal with disability rights, but I want to focus on the Fair Housing Act. Now, under the law, a disability is defined as a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more of a person's major life functions. So, for example, if someone has problems walking or breathing, seeing, hearing, that's all something that would fall under the definition of disability under the Fair Housing Act. Now, this definition also includes people having a history of such impairment or people being perceived as having such an impairment. It's a very broad definition, but many things are covered, and it's broad to pretty much cover everything, every situation that may come up. Now, before I get into the laws, I want to give you an example of a case that we've had recently. It was actually a whistleblower case where a rental agent in Philadelphia contacted us as she believed the practices of her employer, the owner of the apartment building,